Hi all and welcome. For this PowerPoint, we're just going to go through it and have a look at individual plumbing fixtures, how to identify them on a drawing, and how to begin sizing them. Perhaps maybe step one, step two, if you wish to call it that, but it's certainly not extensive but it's meaningful. So let's start with the individual fixtures and we'll talk about what some of them look like, at least some of the main characteristics. We're going to talk about specifically, we're going to talk about reading a drawing for fixture information, some terminology and definitions that go with them, and some code versus common fixture terminology. Fixtures often have one fixture, has multiple terms that describe it, so we're going to talk about that. Then we'll move on to individual fixture sizes and loads, and then a little bit of system loading. You could consider this step one or two if you would. We're not going beyond that though. So what to look for is where we're going to start. And a couple of things you need to know is, first off, every fixture has a trap of some sort. In this particular slide, we have a P trap, it's called. It looks much like the letter P, if you will. Just on its side, or standing up. Okay, that's not a very good P, but you get the gist of it. My apologies. Anyway, so that's a P trap, and essentially the definition of a P trap is it means a fitting or device that is designed to hold a liquid seal that will prevent the passage of gas but will not materially affect the flow of liquid. And that comes straight out of the Ontario Building Code. And what we're talking about here is the sewer gases that are in the system will want to come up through the trap and into the fixture and then into your home. That little bit of water prevents that from happening. Of course, this trap also catches rings and jewelry if it were to fall through into the sink drain and prevent those things from going down. These particular traps are usually drawn on the drawing, and I'll try this again, and they're just simply a centerline drawing. If you see something like that, you'll know it's a P trap. It's a relatively light duty fixture. This next item is a trap standard. Trap standards they mean a trap for a fixture that is integral with the support of the fixture. So you can see in this instance, we have a S trap, which is shaped like the letter S, and the fixture is actually sitting on it. This happens to be a super old school one, and you can see if that looks like the letter, sort of like the letter S. This happens to be a very old school fixture, but is the origins of the term trap standard, called a service sink. Anyhow, that's just one version of it. You can still buy these things, but they're super uncommon. And it's one form of trap standard. There are others. This just happens to be another one. In this case, I'll look at the side view of the water closet. As you know, it's got a little water surface area, but then the trap follows this passageway. And again, it's not the kind of a dirty S, but there you go. That's the trap standard in a water closet. And of course, you're sitting, the toilet bowl itself is the trap, so it definitely is integral with the support of the fixture. That's a done deal. This next one, and we talked a little bit earlier about different languages. This is a good example of where there's a conflict in terms. So what we call a water closet in the Ontario Building Code is actually, at the manufacturing side of things, called a toilet. And we'll talk about that a little bit more to come. Bedpan washer. If you're not sure what a bedpan washer, what you will find is you will find them in older hospitals, smaller hospitals, at least this particular kind that I have up. And what they are is, if you're bedridden, a caregiver will put a pan under your butt so you can do your business, and then they come over here and they wash out that pan in this bedpan washer. That's all it is. Again, the manufacturers don't call it a bedpan washer. They call it a service sink. So you've got two terms for the exact same thing, and it is also a trap standard in the sense that just like a toilet, there'd be a water surface area here, a splashdown zone, if you will. Then there'd be a trap just like that. I haven't drawn that very well either, but you get the gist of it. And that would also be an S-trap or trap standard. Again, because the fixture's sitting on that trap. This one is a little bit controversial. It is a siphon jet urinal. Not everybody considers this a trap standard because there's some doubt about the support, but it's definitely built directly into the fixture. The trap is integral, and it's here. So there's your splash zone, if you will, the water table, and then the trap. Again, it's just like an S. But when it comes down to the outlet, it makes a turn and heads out the wall. So it doesn't continue to discharge vertically, it discharges horizontally. And when you get an integral S-trap standard of a sort like that, it is a 3/4 S-trap because it doesn't go all the way. The controversy here is the support. So if you look at the definition, the trap for a fixture that is integral with the support, I consider this, it doesn't actually sit on the trap in this case, it hangs on the wall, but because there's two bolt holes right next to the trap, I consider this a trap standard. So what you need to know about all these trap standards is that if ever you see a drawing and the pipe just ends like this, or you know, like this, there's no P-trap drawn there, right? And the drain would go off somewhere. I don't know where it would go, it doesn't really matter. Vent going up, perhaps. But you'll see there's no trap drawn on the end of the pipe. You know then that it's a trap standard fixture of some sort. That's important because S-trap standards or trap standards are generally heavy-duty fixtures. That's a rule, not a truth, but it gives you a sense of how to read a drawing to figure out what fixture you're working with, a heavy-duty or a light-duty. So, next component, fixture outlet pipe. Fixture outlet pipe means a pipe that connects the waste opening of a fixture to the trap serving the fixture. So in this particular case, up on the top left, I have a lavatory with a plug and chain on it. This fixture outlet pipe, or PO, comes from a bathroom sink and just has a simple rubber plug that you would pull out to let the water down the drain. The opening in the fixture, of course, is the hole in the bottom of the fixture, and then you'd have a P-trap attached to the bottom, something along these lines, and off it would go. Fairly light duty fixture again, not trap standard, because it has this fixture outlet pipe that lies between the fixture and the trap. A fancier version of that same thing is this bidet and lavatory mechanical PO. So it's the exact same fixture. The difference is, or the exact same, there we go, exact same purpose, except it would work in a bidet or a lavatory. Has the opening here for the fixture, attached to trap at the bottom. The difference is it has this lever that operates the plug, which is also in the top here, through a rod that comes out of the back of the faucet. So when you pull it up, the rod goes up, the plug goes down. When you push the rod down, the plug comes up and the water continues to flow. So this PO is also a fixture outlet pipe in the sense that it connects a fixture to a trap, P-trap. This next one is called a continuous waste, usually from a kitchen sink. On a drawing, you would just simply draw it something like this. And when you see a connection like this that goes to a P-trap, So this is a single line example, the red line. When you see something like this, you now know you've got two of the same fixture attached. And you can size it accordingly or not. You know, there's different rules for this. This particular continuous waste happens to be from a kitchen sink, and it would have this basket strainer that attaches to the top, and then that's the crumb cup, or the strainer, if you will, that removes the debris, kitchen waste, and prevents it from going down the drain. Anyways, that's a continuous waste. That's also a fixture outlet pipe. And again, folks, this is just an example of some primary ones. The last primary item I'm going to show you is the waste and overflow from a bathtub. This is the drain that's in the bottom of the bath. This is the overflow that's up in the wall of the bath. And then the P-trap. The P-trap would come down just like that. Try to remember that this can also be drawn on a drawing. Just something like that. So much like the continuous waste, but perhaps standing up. Anyways, those fixture outlet pipes, it gives you a sense of what would attach to a P-trap. Of course, trap standards don't have a fixture outlet pipe. Next up, fixture unit. So this is a rather simple definition of a fixture unit. Is a measure that approximates the hydraulic load or water load that is imposed on a plumbing system. We often refer to it as just an FU, and it is based on the rate of water supplied through a faucet or drained through the drain pipe. Also, so that'd be a velocity would be another word for that, or volume. And then there's also time of operation. So a bathtub might take longer to fill than a sink. And of course, frequency of use. So a fixture in a restaurant would get more use than a fixture in your home. So things like that. The origins of the fixture unit, I like to do this one just to give you a grip. It is an approximation we don't get involved with. So you never really know. There's some tables we can use to calculate it, but for starters, I like to say that in the 1930s, it was originally just a cubic foot per minute. So a cubic foot of water would flow through a drain in 1 minute, and that was considered one fixture unit. Since then, it's changed and it's become far more complex. So we don't usually get involved with it, but every fixture has a rating that we're given, and we use that. So remember, it's a probable rate. It's guesswork. Smart guesswork, but guesswork nonetheless. Anyway, so we're going to talk about how much water fixtures use as we go through these tables coming up. A few other helpful terms that you might like to use. So there's upstream, which is just another way of talking against the flow. There we go. So if we had flow running in this direction, the upstream end would be here. So if you were traveling upstream or you wanted a fitting to be on the upstream end of a pipe, it would be on the up against the flow, and then the down. This is my abbreviation here for down, would be down with the flow. With the flow. There you go. So watch for those two terms. You'll see them quite a bit, and they're talking about which side of the fitting goes or apparatus goes on the pipe and how it gets installed on the pipe, based on upstream or downstream. You're also going to have a ton of minimum sizes that come with individual fixtures, and we're going to just start with a couple of basic tables, 7493 and 7571. That's based on individual fixtures. So you have to know your fixtures to be able to do this. And it's one of the key learning outcomes from this unit. Also, when you get multiple fixtures draining into one larger pipe, you have to use other tables. Here's an example of just two other tables that we'd use for that. And we'll talk a little bit how to sum that up. Again, we're not going too far into sizing, just step 1 and maybe step 2 if you wish. The other last thing I wanted to talk about is what I refer to, my word here, outlier sizes. So there are some sizes that just aren't in these sizing tables that I've given you. And that would be something like a 4-inch building sewer or 4-inch building drain. That's the main pipe that brings the waste through the building and out of the building. The building sewer is outside, the building drains inside. It's essentially one main pipe. And it doesn't matter what fixture you have on that, it must be 4-inch minimum. So that's what I call an outlier. So you go through all this sizing for specific fixtures, and then you have to check it against these outlier sizes. And again, this is just one example. We're going to get further into that as we go along, but there are things I want you to be aware of now, so you don't get confused thinking you got all the right answers and then it changes up on you. So a couple of terms that I want to reinforce. We've actually talked about some of these already. First off, water closets is a very old term that's hung on for decades. In this case, almost 100 years. 1925, they got a little toilet here. And that is the other term, toilet. This is the more contemporary term. Even organizations such as the United Nations uses the term toilet because it is so universal. So watch for that. If you see or hear me mixing up the terms water closets and toilets, it's because they're considered one and the same. And then this is just an additional slide. I like this slide because it just gives you a sense of what happens when you search for terms like water closet online. You'll get things like, sorry, we didn't find any results for water closet. It's because some of the terminology in the code book is only used in the trade, which tradespeople love, but really it's not very good to you out in the industry, just amongst other plumbers. Anyways, that's it. That was an hour-long PowerPoint presentation that I hope to heck you can chunk it out and watch it as you need it in sections. My name's Jeff Rugrock, all things plumbing for you this semester. Another term that can get easily confused, bedpan washer versus clinic service sink. The building code uses both of these, as does the industry. To give you an example of how bad it can get, the term bedpan washer is what we use in drainage terms to size a clinic service sink from the manufacturer. So believe it or not, this term in 7493, and I'll show you this a little bit later, relates to clinic service sink. And then in another part of the code, the term they use for clinic service sink, if you went to buy one, you'd have to buy a bedpan washer kit. So the manufacturer and the building code are constantly at odds with one another. And there's nothing I can do for you for that. You just have to recognize that there's a thesaurus out there or a collection of similes that you have to become oriented to. Same with laundry tray, laundry tub, or laundry sink. All those terms are 100% valid. Laundry tray is the old one, the archaic one. This is it here. And it comes from days of old where you had to strain your laundry through a wringer and let the water go into the sump below, into a deep sink essentially, and your laundry would fall onto this tray. Anyways, that's where the term comes from. I don't actually think you can buy a laundry tray anymore, but the term is still used, so you have to be aware of it. But what it really means in today's industry is just a laundry sink, or a laundry tub if you wish, whichever you prefer. Anyway, so be aware that laundry tray, laundry tub, and laundry sink are all the same thing.